Hello and welcome to Bendy, a podcast about being flexible in all the ways that means. Thanks for joining us. My name is Andy Young, and I'm one of your wicked, upstanding hosts. Joining me as always is our other wicked and upstanding host, Beth Martin. Beth, a pleasure as always. What's the crack?
Oh my gosh. I love it's like now Wicked has a totally different connotation.
Right? Which is interesting and maybe something we're going to be talking about in
Who
today's
knows? We
episode.
will see.
The nature of meaning.
I know. I have to go like full American on you right now.
Okay.
The first time since we've been together,
hmm
we don't own a truck. I know. And you saw the truck, right?
Yeah, I
It
did see
was
the truck.
lifted. It had like a roof rack
Yeah,
and a
it ruled.
canopy. It did rule. It reminded me of like the Kool-Aid guy who would like bust through the walls. He had like the pointy hair,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
always
yeah.
like I would see the because like the truck had these like the roof rack was like you could like throw like lumber on, so that had these like little guardrail thingies that looked like the Kool-Aid man. Anyways, so um Mike was he's been talking about this forever. It takes him about a year to make any decision about any vehicle.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, I think we should sell the truck and get the minivan, or I think we should
Yes.
sell the truck and da 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 da. So he finally he was like, why don't we just sell it? Because like literally there's a rat eating the tires. It just
Oh,
sits there. We haven't been using it. It's like the life that we lived in Oregon is so different than
yeah.
the life we live here, right? There aren't trees falling all the time. We're not trying to rescue people in a snowstorm. I don't need to use the winch to pull like a tree out of the earth.
Yeah.
So he was like, I think like I made an appointment. Do you guys have CarMax?
No, I know the sort of thing you mean. We do have similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was like the coolest thing ever. He was like, here's my truck. Here's how much, here are all the things that are wrong with it, all the things that are right with it. And they were like, here's the price. Bring it in. We'll do an inspection. And then if it all works out, like we'll buy it off the
Cool.
spot. So the final nail in the truck coffin
Mm-hmm.
was
R.I.P.
Mike's like, he opened the back and he was like, I think there's a mouse in there. And I was like, because he'd found that there was like bedding in the inside of the
Oh
engine
no.
by the air filter. And it was like hantavirus, which back to Gene Hackman, his wife actually died of hantavirus.
Oh
And now I'm
yeah.
like, and I have a friend whose dad was in like, he had flown from upstate New York to Amsterdam, and like it takes like a week or two to set in, and like he got hantavirus, and so I'm like, I was like, put on your mask, and like he has a respirator that he wears for fun in the garage. And anyways, there was this mouse that had the biggest balls I've ever seen in my life. It was like, it was just like at home smoking a cigarette, and I was just
Nice.
like, the hantavirus is here, like we can't just let this mouse eat our truck.
Yeah.
Let's sell it. And so we went in an hour.
I
They
was
wrote us a
done.
check and we were out of there.
Hell
And they're
yeah.
like, we take care of like the Department of Motor Vehicles. Like it's all, and like we don't have to pay taxes on it because it's worth less than when we bought it.
Yeah. Nice.
Which when does that ever happen? You're like,
That's so
yeah,
true.
depreciation. Woohoo.
Yeah, I know that's
So
yeah. When depreciation works out.
I know.
Did you have to like also retire your American passports whenever you traded in your truck? It's like, no, I no longer have a truck.
No. No, I know. It's weird. It's weird because we're like the only ones in Ramona that don't have like a lifted vehicle.
Yeah. It's nice, it's good because I know you have been talking about it. That's cool. And like, do you think,
We own three cars, Andy.
whoa,
I know.
do you
And
think the minivan will happen? Is my question.
I
Okay,
don't. I don't. And
okay,
like we're paying off credit card debt, which needs to
yes,
happen. We paid our taxes, which was uh
yeah,
a sad, sad day. So we're just
yeah, it
trying to
is.
like be responsible adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is probably the most responsible adulting thing we've ever
Okay,
done.
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm patting myself. It
Yeah,
happened. And we got some money for it. So
nice, good,
yeah.
awesome,
Yep.
love it.
Yep. Yeah. What about you?
Um, so as always, I saw a movie since we last spoke. I went to see Mickey 17.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
I
Don't
enjoyed it, but
okay.
I don't think it was a little bit disappointing to me. I liked a lot of it, but it just felt a wee bit baggy and then and kind of Like there's lots of great performances and stuff in it, but it just felt a bit overcooked or something. I don't know. Like especially
Was Robert Pattinson overacting?
no, I thought he was great. I've got to say
Okay.
he was really fantastic in it. I think it just felt because I think about Parasite and I think about it was really genuinely funny, but it was fairly
Mhm.
tight. I know it was like sprawling in its own way, but it was like it had like a really great premise, and I think it told it in a really kind of interesting and focused way. This feels like more shaggy, more like he's just riffing, like having a bit of fun, like as in the director that is. But like
I mean,
it-
didn't he won an Oscar for Parasite,
he did,
right?
he
Best
did.
film,
Yep,
which was crazy and
unheard of.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I mean, after that, it's probably like you can do whatever you want.
Well, this is exactly it. Like, he basically did have a blank check to go make whatever
Mhm.
you like, and I think he did. And like, don't get me wrong, it's fun, and it's one of those movies that I'm like, I am very glad there are movies like this getting made, but it was just kind of like a bit all over the place. But like, still worth a look. And I'd say like if you get an opportunity, I think you'd probably find some fun stuff in there.
Okay. So my standard is high for
Uh-huh.
having to leave the house and go see a movie in the theater.
In that case, like I'd say don't maybe wait till it's streaming.
Okay. Okay.
It would be my take on that, but like.
Okay.
But yeah, I still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. It was just kind of not didn't blow me away. Um, Also for the first time in a long time, I went out to a restaurant the weekend, and like maybe I'm getting old. I mean, I am getting old, but restaurants are so fucking noisy, especially on a weekend. And it was like this one in particular was quite a small premises, so you were like pretty packed in, and it was just noisy, noisy, very hard to have a conversation. And I'm just like. This is, this is why I avoid bars these days. This is why.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've told you this before. I have bad bar voice. Like
Oh,
you've
yes,
experienced my bad. I'm like,
it's true.
like the way my horrible vocal fry voice, like it doesn't carry.
Yeah,
So I'm like, I end up screaming, and then like the next day I sound even more poppy in my.
but like, it's certainly not a place for a like solid, conversation. It's kind of like, so how are you doing?
Yes.
Well, I'm not doing so great. What do you mean by not so great? Okay, let's just quit it. It's just like and that's kind of why I have struggled with bars and nightclubs in the past and why they weren't kind of my favorite. Like I
Mhm.
prefer more of a like quiet bar on like a Friday afternoon than a like a busy bar on like a Saturday or Friday evening sort of
Do you
thing.
remember we were in Portugal and we found that random bar that was like had like record players and records and
Yes.
couches? That's
The-
more my speed.
Yes,
And it
I
was
agree
like th
completely.
3 p.m. There was nobody
Yeah.
there. I think like you had a beer, I had a glass of wine, and we
Yeah.
were just like hanging out, chit-chatting before, but I also think that that's a reason why, like, I wonder if there's a connection between the cigarette industry and bars,
Mm.
because that's the only way that you can actually like take a break, go outside, smoke a cigarette. I'm
True.
not advocating for smoking cigarettes. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just like that is like a thing to get
Apparently,
out, to
yeah.
actually have a conversation and like chill. It's like you have
That's a
to leave.
good point. Yeah, that is very true. Like, I mean, I think that they initially did damage to like a lot of like bars and stuff, the kind of no smoking in bars, but I think you're right.
Hmm.
It just created a different sort of like environment. It's interesting.
Hmm. And
Um,
now we all have, little smoking huts and smoking
it's
porches.
true. And we have e-cigs, which we have to go outside for as well. But yeah, so that was, as I said, it was interesting. It just made me feel like an old man. I mean, like, I am an old man, but like still. Um, Okay, final one, and it's a good one. I think you'll like this. So,
I'd better.
well, you're gonna love it. Let me
All
tell you.
right.
So,
Okay, lay it on me.
um, so I was playing more D&D at the weekend, and basically, I was thinking about what I wanted to play with. I have a variety of different modules that I was maybe going to use, and I saw one, and it was called the Three Wizard Conundrum, and it was basically about these three rival wizards who are like. I'm not going to say too much in case any of the folks are going to listen to this. I don't want to spoil, but like they're cooking up this scheme, let's say, and they're working together, but they're also kind of rivals. And I read the description, of one of these guys, and it said he was like really flamboyant. He liked to, when talking, do illusions and things like that and doing tricks. And I was like, holy shit, I can play this guy like Joe Booth from.
I just started rewatching that
I know
show.
you have. That's why I knew you would love it. And it made me so happy to do. Like I just did illusions and I like would
Da-da-da-da.
role play the villagers kind of like clapping at him in a half-ass fashion. I kept like having him appear behind characters' heads going, and is this your card?
I
Uh,
can see it. I can see it. But like in a deep voice.
well, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
I
and then
was
that became a recurring thing. Like all the characters they met were like, have you heard of it? Keeps called Dunbar the Magnificent, and like all the other characters knew about him. Like, oh, he's incredible. It was so good.
like,
Or all the dumb characters thought he was incredible, I should say. And all the intelligent characters know he's a hack, you know.
yes. It's like there's this one scene where like Michael tells in the show Arrested Development, Michael's like, I need you to do this thing. And, you know, your mom says you need to help out more, so I need you to mail this letter. And it was like the insurance check for the banana stand. And he's like hurling the letter into the ocean, but he can't because the wind is going in the opposite
Yeah, it keeps going back at
direction.
him.
Just like little like I can't I, I need to know more about the writers. I should dig into this more because it's so fucking well done. It's so fucking
It
quick. It's
is.
so great. And they're like, his dad's in jail, and he's like, "Oh, if you met like my friend T-Bone, and he's a flamer," and like that has one connotation, but then you realize like he's actually an arsonist, and like that's what flamer means. So, it's so good. It's so good.
I
But
um I
yeah.
was desperate for one of them to say, you know, I don't really like these tricks. I was really hoping I was like, please. So it could be like, I don't do tricks. Tricks are for whores. I do magic. But they didn't.
Ooh, it's okay. If any
Fine,
of
it's
your
fine.
D&D friends are listening, no,
We
no,
had fun.
just yeah.
I did cue them, and they kind of did it a little bit later, but I wanted it to come naturally, you know. So, but it's
Yeah.
fine.
And
But
this is just a little push for AI is now you can tell that AI is doing most of the auto captions because they're all
hmm
wrong. And like
hmm
I used to have a coworker whose girlfriend was one of the auto captioners,
Oh, hmm
right? And that's your job. You watch TV and you write down what they're saying and type it. And you know, usually like you get most of it, probably like 95 to 93%
Yep.
correct. And it's like I was watching Rest Development and they spelt Job G-O-B, and I was like, okay, so this was a human, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now it's like I can tell they're just no one cares.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter anymore. It's
No, no,
fucking
no.
chaos. Like,
Yes.
um, yeah. So yeah, that was good fun. So that's all I have for crack this week. Do you have any occurring for us this week?
I
No,
don't.
nor do
Not
I.
no.
In that case, shall we move on to our topic of the day? Podcast? Who
Week?
knows? Week?
Friday? I don't
Friday? Um,
know.
okay, which is good, evil. So just, you know, and I think it's an interesting one. Beth suggested this, and it's like it is something I think about a lot. It's such an interesting sort of topic, you know, both in terms of like what it means to the individual, what it means, like kind of, I guess, objectively, and what it has kind
Mhm.
of come to mean, you know. So, real kind of ripe topic of discussion.
I think it's yeah. So definition, obviously evil is being bad and acting out morally incorrect behavior or is the condition of causing unnecessary pain and suffering. That's containing a net negative of the world. Good is, you know, good conduct that should be preferred when posed with a choice between possible actions. Good is generally considered to be the opposite of evil.
Yes.
Haha.
Ah, nice. Like,
Uh, yeah.
what's interesting to me about this, and it's something that, like, what are the roots of like a lot of words and a lot of kind of concepts, and like I think with like good and evil particularly, they are almost like if you think about like how the Bible has influenced us, all of us most directly, it's probably those
Mhm.
two words and those two concepts, you know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
as a result, become so deeply tied with I guess, a religious moral spectrum as well, which I think is interesting whenever you think about the larger sort of like actions, I guess, that are done on the behalf of the church over the, you know, hundreds
Yeah,
and hundreds of years of of
yeah,
humankind's existence.
yeah. And in thinking about this, and I thought about religion and how that has swayed the concept of good and evil, and like before that, what would life have looked like, and like is that a concept that existed prior to? And my guess is yes, because it made its way into religion.
Yeah.
Um, but I also wonder, like, is good and evil something that has like morphed over time?
Yeah, but I think I think, like so many definitions, it honestly changes constantly. Like, I think depending on the person who's talking about it, it can change. And like, one of the things I was thinking about was I remember reading a book many years ago, and it was talking about um the kind of colonization, I guess, let's put it in those words, of South
Hmm.
America.
Hmm.
And Cortez kind of seeing his mission as a holy mission, as, I am here to show these people the true way. Like they are essentially worshiping evil, and I am here to either convert them or to kill them because they are our enemies.
Hmm.
When you look at a lot of the actions that, these colonizers and stuff took, they could probably fall under the evil spectrum, pretty clearly. So it's kind of like, I think, so I think it's so interesting in terms of how amorphous these concepts are.
Agreed. I was thinking about the Salem witch trials that happened
Yeah,
in the United States in what, the 1600s. And, at the time it was morally just to drown a woman to see if she was like, it made its way into Monty Python, right? So
yeah,
they would burn or drown women to prove that they were witches or not, and like with the devil or not, and devil being good and evil, good or evil. Um, and like we're not going to be drowning people to figure out if they're witches these days. So
no,
like obviously that definition is changed, but also how we respond to good or evil, I think, has changed.
yes, or yeah, and I think how like we can be manipulated into looking at certain actions and going, "Oh, this is a good action," because the people who are telling you that at least say they are morally aligned with you. Whether
Right,
they are or not,
right,
who knows?
right, right.
Um, but like it's it's interesting. I just before we one of the things I wanted to say about the witches was that like I have seen that through a really interesting lens recently. There's an area close to where I live called Island McGee, and there was a famous trial about these Island McGee witches, and they did like a historical sort of like there's a room basically with a lot of artifacts and stuff where they talked about the events of that and that kind of story. And in it, what they were saying and the kind of claim that they made, and which I think makes a ton of sense, is that like oftentimes witch hunts or those sorts of things, or like driving out these evil creatures, was part of an effort to wipe out the culture that was there. So like, I suppose Irish Celtic sort of beliefs and stuff like that that were seen as, probably a danger to encroaching sort of like British influence and stuff like that in Ireland. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. It really does.
Yeah.
If they
And
demonize,
probably land grabbing too, right?
absolutely 100%, 100%. Yeah. Just demonize this stuff. And then it's like, well, they're demonic. So therefore, they have to go. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
this, this lamb's not doing anything now. We might as well take it for
Right?
ourselves.
No one's here. So, do you believe in good and evil?
Um,
Like when you think about like the black and white definition of like of good and evil?
I don't think so. No. I would say that I don't think, like, I feel like I could probably look at some actions and describe them as good and probably describe some actions as evil, but I think broadly speaking, no. I think it's too kind of simplistic conceptually for me.
Mhm.
What about
I would
you?
agree. I would
Mm.
agree. When uh, there was a movie
Yeah.
with,
Woo-woo.
okay, I'm trying to remember the name of it. But it was Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think. Rainmaker?
Oh, okay. I know that
Rainmaker?
that name, but yeah, I go ahead, keep.
So basically, like it's all time travel, and he's trying to figure out he's got to go back in time or go
Oh,
forward in time. He goes back in time to try and kill this guy that's really bad in the future. And
yes.
so, and I think the kid who turns out to be really bad in the future, there's an event that happens that turns really like kid could probably have gone one way or the
Yeah.
other. And the worst thing that the kid could ever dream of happening starts to happen, and you see him like, start to rage and like blow up the earth or whatever. But that's kind of where I get stuck, is like having seen, tiny babies, and I don't necessarily think that like I don't think you can be born evil.
Yes. I think is the movie Looper you're talking about?
Yes,
Yes,
Looper.
okay.
That's
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is.
Okay.
Okay, the Rainmaker is the name of the bad guy.
Yes, that was it. That was it. Yeah, because I was like that. I was like, you're
Looper's so
describing.
good.
Yes,
It's
it
so
is.
good.
I haven't seen it for ages, but it is. It's a great movie. Yeah, that's yeah, and like I
Thank you.
think that like it is like a lot of things used as like a sort of cudgel to like paste somebody with a certain sort of oh they are evil, therefore they are
Hmm.
bad, they are an
Hmm.
enemy of all people, but also as a way to kind of like you know. In terms of like alter how you think about somebody, if you talk about them as being good or doing good, it can be quite powerful because like it still has so much resonance for so many people.
Hmm. And there's always that question of like, oh, if you could go back in time, like, would you kill Hitler? Like, that's
Yeah,
something that comes up a lot.
it is.
And, I'm not going to answer that question for myself. But that's kind of where we go,
So true.
when we think about like Mussolini, Hitler, like all these horrible people that have done horrible things, but at some point, they were babies. And I think how you raise your children is very, very important.
I th
Um, and
like
showing them empathy is very, very
I
important.
agree completely. I I think that is such like because like for I think the longest time Hitler and the Nazis were seen as actual evil, like an actually evil force,
Yes.
and there was like
Yes.
undeniable proof of this. I mean, like, I think the Holocaust, it was the smoking gun. Clearly, this regime was hateful and evil, and and et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. Um, but I think what is so fascinating about that, and also kind of scary, is that there has been in recent years a kind of whitewashing of that concept as well. And a lot of people kind of
Yes.
going, well, actually, was Hitler that
Yes.
bad? And there's a
Yes.
lot of denial about like even the Holocaust, things that have actually happened, which is so scary. I mean, considering we're not
Yeah.
even 100 years away from that happening, and it's like
Yeah.
people's memories are so short.
Yeah. It's like 3 or 4 generations,
Oh,
and we're like, what? Well,
that game's
not we.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's topical for the world that we're living in today.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess, do you do you think that they're like ethical monsters?
Uh, yes, I would say so, definitely. Like, I, well, God, yeah, that's a whole other friggin' thing to unpack. I mean, like, I believe there are monsters who believe that they have ethics, is what I would say to that. So, like,
Hmm.
I think that, eh, some people, seem to think that they're doing right, even if their actions hurt others or, maybe not directly, but actually cause others to be hurt. But, like, what's really tricky for me in this current world is that some of these guys I look at who I would say fall under that category, and I don't know if they're for real or if they are espousing this hateful thing to make money. And that's the trickiest thing I find. I don't know if that changes that, but I don't. I think in that case they're unlikely to be working from like a moral framework.
Yeah, and I think that, morality is also a spectrum.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that um how they're working with them in that is just different than how, other people that have a different set of ethical standards
Yeah,
operate. Ethical standards are hard, and I guess like I don't think that ethical standards make you evil necessarily.
I agree. Yeah, I do. And I mean, like, I think I like, it's like so many of these things, and it's such a struggle whenever I was talking about this just the other day, where it's like, you know, if I say a word, how it comes out from me and with the meaning that I imbue it with, it then travels to another person. They hear that word and they absorb it in their definition of that word or their understanding, their relationship with that word based on all of their lived experiences. And it's just such a there's so much of your meaning is lost whenever you say anything, and it's so hard then to like feel like you're adequately communicating things.
Mhm. So, what compels some people to do evil acts?
Uh, Financial gain, well, number one with a bullet, I think, truly. I really do think that is the king of all of these things. Like
Mhm.
and especially if the nature of the kind of evil you're doing, and and maybe it's hurting people or whatever, if you are removed from it enough layers along, you can just kind of like hand wave it away, basically, like as a cost of doing business or whatever, because you're not
Mhm.
actually having to get your hands dirty with the really kind of nasty part of it.
Mhm. I I would agree with that. But I think the thing that takes over, I don't want to use the word that
Uh-huh,
um,
uh-huh.
the thing above that would be
Yeah,
power.
that's
And
true.
with power, because I can think of like a lot of gurus that,
It's true.
have not acted the way that they should with the people that follow them, and that's not, depending on the culture, money isn't as much of a
That's a good
driving
point.
force. It's
Yeah,
more power over others, and usually like being able to sexually assault people
yeah.
and get away with it. Yay. um but there was some movie, again, me and my some movie,
Mm-hmm.
but that said that we're all one step away from murder,
Mm-hmm.
and like the film explores that concept. And it wasn't so much the film. I kind of went somewhere in my head like, okay, well, what would be the thing, right, that would compel me to commit murder? And like murder is like one of the most evil things that you can do,
Mm-hmm.
right, when you think of bad things. um but I think like, yeah, if someone, hurt, I I can't even like say the words, but like if something happened to
Yes.
one of my family members
Yes.
that are the tiny ones,
Yes.
I would probably like, you know,
Yeah, because like it'll be an emotional reaction, do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
like, but then what does that fall under? Because it's like it's not there's the idea of like a crime of passion, and it's like if you
Mhm.
are put in a position like that, like, w- does that still fall under the category of being good or evil? Is that maybe not something altogether different? Like
Yeah. And where does morality fall in that?
exactly,
Mhm.
and it's so thorny, it really is. I
But I think in terms of that question, or that concept of like us all being one degree removed from killing someone, like, love and hate are very powerful emotions,
They
and
are.
when those, get jumbled and crossed, then bad things can happen.
I th
So yes, I
I,
think,
I think it's what like I think people really struggle with, and like I include myself in this, like emotional regulation and knowing even what it is that you're feeling and things like that. And I think it really kind of leads people down paths that maybe are, darker or whatever all too often, and it's like such a shame that there's not more kind of work done to kind of like help people deal with that.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but like, I also kind of understand that like those sorts of things and the kind of thinking and the research around those sorts of things is in its infancy, and there's not enough money to do all the other things we need to be doing in schools.
Right,
So the chances of that happening are slim to non-existent, but
right,
you know.
right. It's interesting too, just watching, you know, children be raised in the town that I live in,
Hmm.
and the things that I can see that are being impressed upon them at a very young age, and I'm just like, oh man, this kid doesn't even have a chance, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like I think that and I feel like it's a term that's overused more and more, or maybe not, maybe it's something that should be out there more often talked about, but just this idea of like generational trauma and trying to, eradicate that, and
Yeah.
trauma comes through generations, and it's like biological too, because like I think so let me think about this. My grandchildren
Hmm.
are, because if you're female, you're born with all the eggs you'll ever have. So
Yes.
like my
Hmm.
grandchildren, and technically each of those eggs will become, a human maybe. So my great grandchildren, right? So the generational trauma is a real thing. It's like living
Yeah.
in my body, it's living in Harper's body, it's living in my mom's body. So I do think that I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that that stuff does carry through in
I think
weird
so too.
ways.
Like and it's interesting because like there is so like in this country, and we've talked about it a little bit before, we had the Troubles. And so that was basically
Which
a
I just love the term, the
I know, isn't it?
troubles.
Do they sound so charming? I know. And like because of that, and because of like a lot of the shit that people went through from that, there is like we are like
Yeah.
one generation removed from that generational trauma, and you still see the effects of it today. Like there is like such a high rate of depression and like other sort of like mood disorders and things like that, and how that then impacts the next. Like some of those people have had children and how that affects those children, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And it's wild, but it's just again, it's like because it is hard to, I think, accurately assess and accurately go, well, here are the numbers on this. It's seen as it's not really paid attention to as it should be.
Hmm. Hmm. So, I have a new question for you.
Hmm.
Is there anyone who seems absolutely evil who's actually good?
Um, again, it also depends on perspective. Like, I mean, I think who's seen as absolutely evil, who's actually good. No, it's probably my quick answer.
Andy,
That's
pirates.
oh, pirates, yeah. I don't know if pirates were good. I mean, like, I, I suppose I suppose, yeah. Like, I mean, they were
They're like the
fighting.
Robin Hoods of the ocean.
That's true. Like, I mean, I suppose, like, if there were good guys back then, they were probably nominally better than the kind of like thugs from like the English or the Dutch or Spain or whatever. So yeah, possibly it's an interesting one. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also like. I was also have been reading a little bit about Vikings recently, and like Vikings have a bit of a bad rep on how like they had quite a like compassionate, kind culture and so on and so forth. Like yes, they did raid other countries, but like everybody was doing that shit back then. Fucking
That's the
everyone
thing.
was.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's an amazing thing I read. This is neither here nor there, but apparently when they raided England and they were living in England, and there was English writers at the time writing about how. So every Saturday, Vikings insisted that they all bathe, and the English writers were basically like, "Who do they think they are, bathing once a week?" You show offs, which I love.
And then we get to like the wig wearing times.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, do you think that our society hides evil or like exacerbates evil?
I think evil's more benign than that. Like, I think that it
Hmm.
kind of is insidious and kind of baked into like, so many systems and things like that. And like, unfortunately, the reason why that happens is because people benefit from those systems being that way. Some people do, probably a small minority. So it's in their interests to not let these things change. And
Hmm.
again, it's the same thing I was saying earlier. Like if it's far enough removed from these people's lives, it's like it's not happening at all for them.
Hmm. Yeah, I think empathy plays a big part of it. I think, yeah, the idea of being removed from things that are happening around you. And if it's not happening to you, it's like when you go through something really difficult in your life and then you're like, oh my gosh, like this is a whole new area and all these other people are being affected and I hadn't even thought about it.
It's
So it's almost like, I don't know, um, do people that do evil things need to have more experiences?
so there was like I'm gonna butcher this because I can't remember the specifics of it, but I'll get most of it. So basically, there was this a writer or like somebody who studied how people work, and speaking in vagaries because I can't remember it exactly, but essentially talking about how there are most humans have one of two survival strategies, which is they look upon all humanity holistically and think, how do these things affect everyone, or they think about the people that are their tribe, so which will be their family, maybe other people in their town and things like that, and they can really not really see beyond that. And they're
Yep.
both kind of valid strategies for survival. So, and I think that like if people are in that latter group, that they really kind of struggle to then see the effect of these things on other people until like it's like you see it, we're seeing it happening right now, and like so many like right-wing voters who are like, oh, this person's amazing, their person gets into power, and they still think they're
Mhm.
amazing until shit directly affects them or directly affects their family. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much that can be done to change that, which is
Mm.
shitty, but
Yeah. And it's interesting because, we talk a lot, we skirt the subject of politics.
yeah,
And I think that not that I mean, a lot of people say that like you hear people say all politicians are evil,
yes,
and like none of them really have the the greater good at
yep,
heart, in terms of their interests. And it's like the more power you get, and that's not, I don't think that's necessarily true for all of them, but I would
yep.
say maybe 5% of them are worth voting for, and the other 95 are like
That seems, I
in
like
it
the,
for like
yeah,
self-serving
yeah.
interests or purposes.
But it's like,
Um,
it's also like managers, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? Like anybody I know who wanted to be a manager, I was like, you should never manage people. You're
yes.
horrible. But like the kind of people who have ended up managing things that don't particularly want that, are like, I'm like, you're actually pretty good at it. But nearly all of them do not want to do it. They want to get out of that as quickly as possible. So it's
Hmm.
like people who kind of want power are probably the absolute last people who should have it.
It's true. It's true. It's true. But at the same time, it's like the way that our society is structured. You have to be voted in, and that's a whole,
Yep.
it's like in order to be voted in, you've got to play the game,
Yep.
and the game is dirty. The game
It's
is ugly,
completely,
and it's
completely.
like, you know, um, finding out the worst things about each other and splashing it all over the news, and then the rest of us are watching that, and
Yep.
the example that sets. And I don't think going to church on sorry, I'm just like blathering, but I don't think
Nope.
going to church on Sundays and like being absolved for your sins for the week, I don't think that is helpful.
Nope. But like I think for a lot of people that is just it. It's just like, well, there's not much I can do about this, but this kind of allows me to throw a cloak of good over me and kind of go,
Mhm.
well, I'm doing good, I guess, because and
Mhm.
it's a shame because like, it's the thing that when I was a kid, my parents took myself, and my sister to church and kind of let us try church for a while. And then when we were kind of old enough, early teenage years, we're kind of like to both of us, do you still want to go to church? And we're like, no.
Mhm.
And they were like, okay. And for me, I have never needed church to know that I should treat people right, and I think
Mhm.
that like for some people it can be useful to instill some compassion in people and go, right, you need to start thinking about others, you need to start thinking about the bigger picture. I think that the opposite can happen as well, where people can go, well, I go to this thing, therefore if I do something that maybe isn't quite good, um
Those rupees don't count.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still with a good gang, so I'm basically okay here,
Do you ever wonder, like, if we just eradicated, like, if I could snap my fingers and like religion never existed,
like
like, wonder what our society would be like.
it's such a crunchy one because um I think that like our society wouldn't be here without religion. I don't think humans would have evolved. I don't think we would have been like in the place we're in without religion because I think that it like allowed us to have structures, it allowed us to support people, that didn't have other support. I think it allowed us to build community and things like that. So like this is not to say religion, yay. I think there are major problems with it, but I think sadly there are also some kind of benefits that allowed us to kind of like get into the place that we're in now.
What if, because every culture has some type of religion, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's, believing in the earth as the mother or,
Yeah.
God is up in the sky. But I think that missionary work
Hmm.
isn't necessarily a good thing, right?
I think it is because it's not truly altruistic, it is kind of like targeted. It's not like we want to help you. It's like we will help you, but also won't you join our gang? In fact, if you want our help, you're kind of gonna have to join our gang. So I really don't know how I feel about that because
Mhm.
I think because of like how unfair the world has kind of like evolved for certain continents versus others, I think that it's good that somebody's doing something, but at what cost, So yeah, it's just so thorny, and it's just, I don't know, really illustrates that kind of duality of in all of this stuff.
Yeah, I I'm kind of I keep thinking about, this is a story maybe like a decade ago. There's an island somewhere where uh maybe like, I don't know, Indonesia or Micronesia, I can't remember. But there was a missionary that was determined, it's an island that everyone is left alone. There's a population of people, they have no technology, they have no internet, they have nothing. They're just living this primitive
Yep.
life on this island. And this missionary was like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna bring the word of God. And, but they also had been so isolated that they don't have vaccinations, they don't have,
Yep.
so it's like the old story, but in today's society. And this person thought that they were really, really doing the right thing by bringing the word of God to this island of people that have just been existing. And I think, best of intentions,
Hmm.
but also a lot of ego
Hmm.
involved in that.
Hmm.
And they ended up murdering him.
Yes, I remember hearing about this.
Yeah. And again, the government's like, we got to leave them alone, let them be. But I'm also impressed with whichever government this is that I can't remember, because they really are allowing them to just be. And
Yeah.
I'm so interested in what that culture looks like, what beliefs they have, and how amazing and tough they are that they've really giving the
they've
big fuck you to the rest of the world that has continued to try and like,
and it's like,
colonize them, and they're like, no, we're not having it.
and as much as like, you know, they are isolated. They're our civilization is bound to have touched them in some ways, as in like they've maybe seen a plane fly overhead or they've seen a
Exactly.
satellite in the sky. And
Exactly.
how does that affect their culture and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
it's really, yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. And but like what I suppose would be really interesting is like if somebody could is to ask them what their idea of good versus evil was, or what those sorts those concepts, or even if they had those concepts at all,
That's my question. It's like,
mm,
yeah, no, I mean, we can't get that close, but
no. All right, that's our bandy field trip. I call not it. Actually,
uh,
let me think about this. Do I call it? Yeah,
I can
maybe I
row a
do.
boat. I can row a
Yeah,
boat.
yeah. Okay, well, think
Um,
about it.
right. So I'm j- we've been talking a lot about like evil and darkness, but like there is the other side of that, which is, good and morality. So do you have any examples of good from like your own personal experiences, or like someone that you saw contribute something that was good and you perceived it as being good?
Like, I think I know plenty of people who I think are doing good. Like I truly do. And like I think people I know who volunteer, like who actually literally give up their own time because just because it's the right thing to do. I know many people like that. I have a friend who like she does like a women's circle and things like that just to give a space for women and things like that I think is great, because I think it's important to do these things, and there are people that are willing to put their time aside and make the effort to make these things happen and give people a space. So like I think there is lots of good in the world. Like I think there's lots of truly, unambiguously good actions in the world, and I think there are a lot of people doing them, but I think that all too often you because like a lot of really truly good actions, people don't shout about it. Like they don't freaking like if it's those things. I see videos of like guys, on Instagram or whatever or Facebook or
Yes.
whatever, get here like here I'm handing out $100 to a homeless person. I'm like, why not just hand a homeless man $100 instead of making it fucking content? I hate I, well, I don't hate that. I feel like
It's
it's
it,
whatever.
it's exploitive.
It is
Yeah.
exploitative, and like so I think that like that is, in terms of like actual good and true good is that it goes uncelebrated, I think a lot, you know.
Which, you watch the news, you read the newspaper, you see the things. It's like we don't sell. Thank God for Mudang, right?
Thank God for today.
We all needed that little pygmy hippo, but it's less interesting. And to people, this
Yes.
concept of good, right?
Like
Fear is more interesting than, you know,
it sells more, it
being
draws more
chill.
eyes. Yep.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's such a shame, because like I like they have very much fine. We've talked about that in, marketing and sales and stuff like that episodes where it's like they have literally found that people are more driven or people who are afraid or scared of things will buy more and so on and so forth. So it's just like because of how, you know, money driven and money focused our society is, like it's a capitalist society, then that's unfortunately we're going to see a lot more about evil stuff than good stuff.
Hmm. Timu.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
so,
yes.
but like, I was thinking about that too. Like, what are ways where people can contribute to society in a positive manner? Like, there's volunteering, there's not posting, disaster, you know, tourism or like those
Yeah.
types of things.
Like I think the only effective way to do it is small scale, like so
Like,
volunteering. Like I
yeah.
think if you go on a big scale, it can't help but be corrupted. I mean, not exclusively, and I'm sure there are examples of people who could give me, and I could go, yeah, okay, I would agree with that. There's a big scale thing. I mean, like I look at like Mr. Beast, for example, and things like that, and all the kind of stuff that he does, and it's so much like content driven. It's like he did all this stuff in Africa and stuff like that, and it's like, well, but you are a multi millionaire. Are you giving people a share of this of your earnings? I'm sure he's not.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's just I don't know. So I think it's small scale is my kind of thoughts on it.
I would agree with that. I think anything on a larger scale, um, it's like Live Strong, right? Which
Yes.
was it's uh who's the bike rider? My
Oh, Lance
brain.
Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong started Live Strong and it was all about cancer research. And, it's like Live Strong exists without him now, which is great. And they
Yeah.
do wonderful work, but it's still tainted because he lied, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't do the moral thing and he cheated on his bicycle.
Yes, he
So,
did.
not to make it sound small, but like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah. But you're right.
yeah,
But yeah, yeah. So it's like, what is you know, what's the over under on like Live Strong? I mean, like something good came out of
right,
it, but like,
right.
yeah, it's a tough one. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the only example of someone that I can think about who's like truly um would be truly a good person would be Mother Teresa, but like we don't even know her whole story,
This
right?
is it. Like, and again, no person's perfect.
Mm-mm.
Um, so like, who knows? The only person that immediately springs to mind for me is Keanu Reeves,
It's true.
our Lord and Savior,
Our Lord and
Keanu Reeves.
Savior.
And because
Yes.
like, it was funny, I was thinking about large good actions and like him. I think that like, stories that come out about him like years later about like the fact that he bought like motorbikes for all of the stunt team on, he just does these gifts that he doesn't, it isn't like Keanu Reeves,
Yes.
Variety reports that Keanu Reeves, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. He just does
Yeah.
these things because it's the right thing to do. It's because like these
And
guys were
then
putting their bodies in the line for him and
totally.
he respects
Yep.
that. Like
And then
that's,
you find it out through like word of mouth.
yeah,
Oh,
like
and it
20
was
years
like,
later. Yeah.
yeah. I saw something he did the other day, and who knows how long ago this was, but he was like, it was like him just not even speaking, but just showing you the action of like what you do when you have a new girlfriend, or you have a girlfriend, now what do you do? And he's in the bathroom and he like puts the toilet lid down, and he's in the kitchen about to cut bread, and then he grabs a cutting board instead of like cutting it on the counter. And I was just like, yeah, it's like, you're right, Andy, it is the little things.
It is. It is. It is. At the end of the day, that's the only things you can control.
Hmm.
And but and also like, it's like always, I think, to be mindful about like other things in your life and be prepared to like critically look at things that in your life and go, you know what, maybe this isn't great and maybe I can make a change and I don't need to feel like an asshole for doing it. It's just
Hmm.
noticing as you go through your life that certain habits or certain things that you've always done maybe aren't always the best.
Hmm. So I guess my question for you then is, are you good or evil?
Oh, evil, pure evil to my core, as you know.
What is it in Time Bandits? Pure concentrated evil?
Yeah, pure concentrated evil. Yeah, that's me. Through and through, seeping out of my pores. Like I don't think I'm good. I'm thinking in D&D terms. What am I in D&D terms? Probably lawful neutral, maybe.
This
Maybe.
actually, Googling this, D&D came up a lot. There's
Yeah,
a lot of conversation around good and evil and the gray areas and how we should shift the definition and like how we play that in how we work that into the game.
yeah, yeah.
And I wonder in D&D, like, is there any pure evil?
There are, but it's like demons and devils and shit like that.
Okay.
And there are like some. I mean, because it is like, a cartoonish world in some ways, some like wizards and things like that are seen as being pure evil, but like most, because like there is, nine different, no, I can't remember, some like nine different sort of like versions basically, and yeah, but there's definitely true evil in there, but like yeah, I think hmm, let's check that. I feel like I'm kind of lawful neutral. What's the lawful? I don't think I'm lawful evil. Lawful neutral sounds right. Yeah, okay. So that's what I'm settling on. Neither
Okay.
evil nor good, but lawful neutral.
I think mm, I think I'm critically good. Like I'm critical of everything and
Yes.
everyone. And I don't think that's a good trait to have, because I do tend to like I see that's not true. The people I really think are good, I see the good in. And the people that are in the gray area, I think I tend to see as being more evil than good, which isn't, it's like that's not helping, right?
Yeah. I,
So I think in terms of the way I view things, especially in such a polarizing time, it's so easy to be like, oh, they're evil, oh, they're
yeah, I
bad. But it's
agree.
like
I
everyone's
agree.
living their own lives, and I just, I'm trying to like check myself a little bit because it's
I,
so easy just to be like,
I'm like,
you know,
you
that's
can 100%
it's
like
fucked.
have a conversation. It is, but like you can meet somebody who has polarizing, really kind of polarizing political views to you, and would say things and have opinions that you would find abhorrent. That you speak to them, you're like, oh, they're a nice person. They treated me kindly. They, opened the door for me. They pay for my food because I
Yeah.
didn't have money.
Yes.
It's just like so. It's like it's so difficult to I don't know, to think about that. Can I give you, okay, this is what lawful neutral is. So, like, okay, I'll give it to you first. So, it prioritizes order and upholding rules, regulations, and traditions, but without a strong
Okay.
moral compass, focusing on impartiality and consistency rather than good or evil. So, I like that apart from the prioritizes order and upholding rules. I am an anarchist at my core. I don't like traditions. Traditions are peer pressure from dead people, in my opinion. So yeah, I kind of like that, but I don't think I'm true neutral. So yeah, lawful neutral-ish, let's say. That doesn't answer your question at all.
It does. It does. Not.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, like,
It
do
does
you?
not.
Yeah, like,
I no, I think like when I think of anybody that's good, it's you.
okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, like,
So,
you know, I'm kind
and
of
my
like,
children.
of
You're
course, yeah,
welcome.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
welcome.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, like, um. I think about it in terms of like, and this is the thing I always think about it whenever people call me good was whenever like, go back to the well, Army of Darkness once again. Whenever
Yeah.
Ash,
Yes.
the
Yes.
evil Ash came out and he's like, "Good little two shoes, good." So that's that's where I'm at with that. That's where I'm at with that. Anyway,
Way to shove that compliment away.
yeah,
I'll take
I'll
it.
say I'm trying to
I'll
do
take
better.
the shove.
I'm like I've been getting schooled recently and trying to be better at taking compliments. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Look at you
appreciate it.
go.
I know. I barely bit my tongue. Uh, um, just barely. Okay, shall we move on? Do you have anything more? Do you want to, are we,
No,
okay.
no.
Sweet.
I think it's like yeah, this is a deep topic and we could go further into it,
Yes,
but I think for today,
it's a good
that's as far as
overview.
I want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, The Rainmaker is a legal drama starring Matt Damon.
Damn it.
Anyway,
That
but
demon.
no, Matt
Sorry.
Damon. Okay, so in that case, we're coming to our end section. So, what has been bringing you joy this week?
Friday was Mike's
Uh-huh.
birthday, and I don't know, it's just like I just the little things, man. Like
Yeah.
took the kids to Target, bought some things. We got a new frying pan. We got a wok for him so he's the cook. I broke the sink
Mm-hmm.
over the weekend, so I also
Oh,
I bought him a $300 sink
hell yeah.
to replace the other one. He's like, how, like the plumber was like, how do you break a sink? Mike's like,
That's
I
a
don't know.
good question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, I know. And I would say mashed potatoes is also bringing me joy.
That's a good answer.
I
Yeah.
almost texted you like a picture of all the mashed potatoes I've been making because
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
like there's so many ways to make a potato, but I think mashed is my favorite.
Interesting. Like,
Yeah.
I just like fried I like chips
Oh, I
or
know.
French
Yeah,
fries
yeah,
so
yeah.
much. So like, but like I do love mashed. I do love mashed potato a great deal as well, I must say. Um,
I would dip a fry in a mashed potato and be like, that would be like ideal.
do you dip fries in milkshakes?
I've heard of people doing it.
Yeah.
The kids do it,
Okay.
actually. Like their Frosty, their Wendy's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Frosty. They'll do that. They do
I kind of
that.
want to. Yeah, okay. That's yeah, that's neither here nor
Okay,
there.
add it to your list.
Oh well, my life goals.
Yes.
Um, okay, so for me, I don't know if I've done this one. So I've been put, and it's an interesting, I think it's like on topic. So I have been really loving a game called Marvel Rivals
I've
recently,
heard of it.
and it's great because, I love Marvel, as we know, and it's kind of great to play all these guys, and they're really kind of well implemented. It looks fantastic. It's one of these free to play games, but essentially, if you want to unlock costumes and stuff like that, you've got to pay basically. Um,
Gotta pay to play.
you got to pay to play, but it has been a big success for this company. Um, like really done way better. I mean, like they were hoping for good things, but it has done way better than they hoped. It's been a really big hit for them. And they had a team of American developers, about 100 people. As soon as the game shipped, they closed down the office and they fired them all. And it's just like, wow. But like that is video game development in a nutshell. It's a nightmare, and like your jobs are just having like a long-term job in video game development is very, very difficult, and it just sucks, and you're just like, oh man, I'm enjoying this game, but I also kind of have an awareness that basically all video game companies operate this way, and honestly, most companies operate this way, so it's just, so good and evil in action. There,
Absolutely.
the game's good,
Absolutely.
but all
Yet,
companies are
but all the
evil.
people got fired.
Yeah, all companies are
You're just
evil.
playing on the backs of people on unemployment.
Yep. I'm not gonna live with that. But as I say, there was a thing I've heard recently, which is there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, and I think it's very true. So
Mm,
I think we can.
interesting.
I think it's true.
I mean,
I just as a way to kind of be like, don't deny yourself treats just because you want to like stick it in the eye of this corporation. Because honestly, it probably won't make a lot of difference to them. I mean, like you can do small things here and there, and I think everybody should. But by and large, this is the world we live in, and you deserve treats sometimes.
yeah, and buy your treats from people that, own their own businesses.
Yes, yes, they yes. If you can do that, do that. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, not
Yep.
from not from Amazon.
Not from Amazon.
Love it.
Which
Okay.
actually I'm trying to black out. I'm on the blackout right now. So like Friday to Friday, not buying anything on Amazon.
Hell yeah.
It's actually not as hard as I thought
No, it
to
really
not buy
isn't.
something for a week, as opposed to like, oh, I know I need that, but like I can wait 4 more days or whatever.
I agree completely, and I'm trying
Yeah.
to do it much less and less, like because they're just it's horrifying. But
Hmm.
yeah, but anyway, so that's been bringing me joy, mixed joy within the
Mixed
past little
joy.
while, mixed joy. But yeah, okay, Beth, could you tell everybody where they can find us?
You can find us all over the internets, but our main homestay is bendypodcast.com.
Tis indeed. Okay, in that case, folks, as always, we'd like to remind you to stay.
Stay
Bendy.
bendy. I might need a
Uh,
voice coach.
I think we both
All
did. All right.
right, love
Love
you guys.
you.
Bye,
Bye
bye, bye,
bye.
bye.